You've had Wendy's Nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Saucy Nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic, parm, or the spicy versions of all of those. My son had me order 20 spicy buffalo nugs in the app the other day. He said, I'm not sure how hungry I am. I'll save you some. I got back 5 minutes later. They were all gone. So order your own nugs, by the way, because they are irresistible and they will be gone. Well, if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. That is on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome to Annie and Ari on 3. We are picking the quarterfinal games today, but we have a lot to talk about before we get to the picks because lots going on. Ari's been on Finebaum. We got bowl games coming up. We got transfer portal news. Ari, Fluff Bothwell has found a home.
That's electric. Andy, I hope you had a wonderful holiday. I hope you had a good day with your family. I hope everybody here had a wonderful Christmas. It felt bizarre to have a weekday where we didn't have a show, but also at the same time, I hope everybody was able to recharge. It is kind of strange, Andy, isn't it, that the new expanded playoff has created this weird world where, during what is usually a pretty down time for us, at least a few days, is now like in the thick of the most important season of the sport. But certainly excited about it. I had a late flight last night out to California where I'll be covering the Rose Bowl. So excuse the shot. I know this isn't perfect. I found a single person business center, was a little worried about the internet, was a little worried about the picture, but hopefully we can get through this.
I can't wait till somebody comes in and is like, I got to print my plane ticket out. What the hell are you doing in there?
Well, I picked their single person rooms and there's no computer or printer in here. The one next to it has the printer. So like if anybody tries to come in here, we're going to have a problem. Last night we changed a flight to land in Burbank instead of LAX. And then we got to the airport and it turned out that my wife accidentally changed the flight returning home and not the flight there.
Oh no.
So we had kind of a running through the Love Field airport, like Kevin McAllister's family moment. And I woke up at 5:30 afraid that I wasn't going to have the right connection, but like everything is coming together. Everything's coming up, Ari, today. And I'm super excited to be back on the show with you and to talk through these games and maybe get a little Finebaum steam off my chest.
Yeah, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. So we got Fluff Bothwell has found a home. So let's look at Fluff here. For those who don't know, Fluff Bothwell, South Alabama running back, averaged 7.5 yards a carry, only carried about 9 times a game this year. He's going to Mississippi State. Why are we talking about this instead of higher profile transfers? Because his name is Fluff Bothwell.
Well, he also was really good, right?
He was.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty important get for Mississippi State. Am I overstating?
Oh, you're
that?
Right. But has there ever been a guy better named to be a star at Mississippi State than Fluff Bothwell? The school that gave us Pig Prather and Pork Shock Womack, of course, is going to give us Fluff Bothwell now.
I am really into, and maybe in the offseason we can talk or come up with a list of guys who just have names that just have NIL deals written all over them. It's like if your name is Fluff, then there are a few things that you could endorse, I think, just naturally, right? Like,
yes.
What was the kid's name that went to Nebraska that did the air conditioning?
Coldest Crawford.
Yeah, Coldest Crawford.
So Fluff definitely needs like some jacket company, like a fleecy jacket company, or something soft and definitely fluffy. Or he could have Downy, like a fabric softener brand.
He could do fabric softener. He could do mattresses. He could do goose down pillows, comforters.
Yeah, John in the chat says pillows. Yep.
He also could do the marshmallow fluff. Like that's also in the mix there. What else could be fluffy? I don't know. Cotton swabs.
Q-tips. Yeah.
Q-tips.
Q-tip. Listen, Fluff.
And you start going into Johnson and Johnson, like that's where the real cash is at, man. Like that's a big company.
Well, or they're just trying to figure out who to trade for on the Jets. So, but Fluff, when your agent's phone blows up, just thank us later, Fluff. What another piece of transfer portal news before we get into the games, because we've got a bunch of bowl games to talk about, and obviously we've got to pick the quarterfinal matchups. But Beau Pribula, we talked about him a ton last week because he left the Penn State team to enter the transfer portal. There were other quarterbacks, notably Preston Stone at SMU, which played Penn State, and then Devin Brown at Ohio State, which is still playing, who were in the portal and stayed with their teams. Pribula said he couldn't do it. James Franklin said it wasn't possible, that Pribula tried. Well, Pribula has found a home. He is going to Missouri, a $1.5 million NIL deal, according to our Pete Nakos. So he's the bridge quarterback, right, Ari? That Missouri's going all Pennsylvania QBs. That's the new thing. Is Matt Zollers is the big time recruit they have coming in the class of 2025, and Pribula is the bridge.
It's an expensive bridge.
Well, I mean, have you ever tried to build a bridge before?
They're pretty expensive, and he seems sturdy.
Tons of concrete. You got to make sure they don't fall into the water.
Yeah. Can you talk about this? Because I've just had this in my head, and I don't know if there's a rule or I'm going to look like an idiot, but why can't he just go back to the team now for a few weeks? Like I don't understand that either. I want him to play on the team. I really want, like, Penn State's good. They are going to probably advance to the semifinals.
Yeah, and look, it clearly they ended on good terms. It wasn't like they were mad at Beau Pribula or Beau Pribula was mad at them. Like, all the discourse about it was, hey, we wish it didn't have to be this way. Well, now it doesn't have to be this way.
I mean, I don't know. Is there like some sort of like loyalty thought here of if you leave the team for a week that you're not equipped to come back? Like, I don't understand what the problem is. I mean, if I were on the Ohio, if I were on the Penn State beat, I would be like texting Franklin, like, why can't he come back? Like, I think this is a really interesting angle. I don't know. Unless there's some sort of school rule or something that I'm not seeing here.
Right. The eligibility in terms of like, were you in school? Like that's all based on fall. So he finished his fall semester. So he'd be fine to do it. You can even be enrolled in a new school in online classes. Like, you can do it. It's just,
here's the thing.
It would be very weird right now.
Like, if we did a ranking, again, more off-season ideas, but like a ranking of head coaches who the general public likes to pile on the most, James Franklin would be number one, right? Like, people love piling on that man. And I don't know what it is about him, but they do.
Even when they're piling on other coaches, they pile on James Franklin too.
Yeah, like people like call Ryan Day like a better James Franklin than James Franklin.
The Michael Jordan of James Franklin. That was the joke going
Michael
around.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, why is he catching strays? And like, I have been over the years very critical of James Franklin because, they have a lot of resources at Penn State and they can't get over the hump. And like, now we're watching them get over the hump. Like, I feel bad for Beau Pribula here. And this is, what we talked about when I wrote the column when this all happened. But I also feel bad for James Franklin in this scenario because it when the news came that Pribula was going to be leaving the team, Andy. Yeah. Remember when I was texting you and I asked you who's the villain here? And you're like, there doesn't have to be a villain. And like, I thought that was a great way to put it and to like kind of highlight the reality of the situation, which is that even though nobody did, because like, I don't think the NCAA did anything wrong. It's not their fault.
Like, John in the chat says he left the team. He shouldn't be allowed back. Like,
why?
That's a James Franklin decision. James Franklin's not mad at him right now.
Yeah. And like, James Franklin only expressed remorse. So you don't want to blame the NCAA here, right? Because the NCAA's calendar is predicated on something that's bigger than the NCAA, which is just the academic calendar.
Right. It's the academic calendar. It's a semester system. Like, the
NCAA has also equipped these kids to now earn money, both in NIL and hopefully rev share coming up. But also too has allowed them to leave with impunity. Like, this wasn't an NCAA being a tyrant here. Like, Beau Pribula had all the ability that he made this decision. This is his decision. But at the same time too, I understand why somebody in his position who's never started when spots are at a premium needed to focus on his future. But like, you don't think that James Franklin thinks that Penn State is, even if they are 1% better with Pribula on the sideline, although I think that the percentage is probably a lot higher than that because of the versatility that he gives you as a runner.
They used him a lot this year. Yeah, he's not like your typical backup where he's just sitting there. Like there was a package for him. He was part of the game plan.
So I feel bad for Pribula for being, and like the thing with him too is that he grew up a Penn State fan from Pennsylvania. I think he was from York, PA. And like not being around for Penn State's first title run in 4 decades, basically. But then I also kind of feel bad for Penn State and James Franklin because they're breaking through in the process. Like, you know, when you look at like what the 12-team era has given us, Andy, Penn State's season would be finished in the Outback Bowl or something last year, right? Or whatever. Right. Maybe
they would have made the Peach Bowl or they might have been in the Rose Bowl or how. Yeah, but yes,
I don't know. It wouldn't have been in a game that people viewed as anything more than exhibition, even if it was a shiny, sexy one. And the 12-team playoff has allowed teams to have the opportunity to have big program-altering wins in different aspects of the sport that didn't exist a year ago. Like Penn State may not win the national title this year, but if they are to beat Boise this week and advance to the semis and win 2 postseason games, those are moments, those are memories, especially because their win was at home, that Penn State would not have had in an alternate universe, meaning last year. And for them to be embarking on this, and a team that had played toe-to-toe, I thought, with Oregon, and might be surprising some people this year to do it, they got worse without their backup quarterback. Like, that's a fact, right? They're worse. Yes. And for them to not have him sucks, and it sucks for the kid. So let's get back together. Let's get the band back together. Like, I don't know. I don't know why we have to overcomplicate it.
Because I don't think Eli Drinkwitz would care. Eli Drinkwitz was the one last year who's like, hey, if you're in the portal, but you want to come help us beat Ohio State in the bowl game, by all means, let's do it.
You don't think that Drinkwitz would want his quarterback to have high leverage snaps in big time postseason games coming into the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd probably not want him to get hurt, but yes, I think he'd be fine. I do. I think everybody could be grown-ups about this if they wanted to. I would hope, but it's probably too late now.
Yeah, but James Franklin expressed remorse for Beau Pribula the entire time he spoke about it.
Absolutely. He was not angry. And let's be real here. The reason this happened the way it did and with the timing it did, not just because of the calendar, was Drew Aller making his decision when he did. If Drew Aller doesn't decide I'm coming back, then that changes the math on all of this. Beau Pribula is not leaving if Drew Aller is going to the NFL. Because Beau Pribula is going to be the starting quarterback at Penn State next year.
Yeah, and here in the chat, John Christophic, if you enter the transfer portal, you're a traitor. Like, that's like such a 1993 way of looking at it.
Or a 2022 way of looking at it. It's
I don't know.
It's not that way anymore. Like, you don't get... And here's what John doesn't understand. Penn State needs Beau Pribula more than Beau Pribula needs Penn State right now. That's a fact. Like, they would love to have him. He doesn't have to be there, but they would love to have him.
Yeah.
So
maybe I'm just wishing it into existence, but
it would be nice, but it's not going to happen. Yeah. You know what is going to happen? I am going to open this box of Panini Prism next week. We're going to celebrate the next round of the playoffs by opening this box of Panini Prism draft picks, average of 4 autographs per box. There's four packs in this box, average of 1 autograph per pack. We're going to open that next week. PaniniAmerica.net is where you go to start your collection of your favorite college and NFL stars. Ari, do you bring your cards with you on trips?
No, but I buy cards
sleep with them at night.
Like, I'm like going to take Britt, my daughter, to a card shop here. Like, we're in the Calabasas, area up here, Westlake. I'm gonna find a card shop and we're gonna buy some stuff. Like, it is a full-on addiction. And did you see my face when you held that box up?
I know.
I was like, I thought you were doing it now, and you're like, we're gonna open this next week. I was like, oh.
Listen, I gotta give everybody something to look forward to.
Look at them in the chat. We got playoff games. I want to rip.
We got playoff games, but But hey,
you can't just open up one pack right now. There's an auto in the pack. Just open it.
I guess we could. All right, let's do it.
You have 4 packs. Yeah, F it. We'll do it live. Thank you for doing this for me. It's this is my Christmas gift.
We love you, Panini. Here we go.
Too,
one pack. We got
Hanukkah
JJ McCarthy on the front of these.
Okay.
All right, we're ripping a pack. We're ripping a pack right now. Here we go.
Noise. It's the candy bar noise and the football card noise.
All right, so I got an AJ Dillon. I think that's a numbered.
No, that's not.
Oh no, this is. Oh, that's right. The prism, because the prisms are already pretty sweet. I love that these guys are in their college uniforms. There's Frank Gore in his Miami uniform. Jalen Polk in his Washington. Here we go. We have an autograph. Someone who was a big star in the playoff 2 years ago. Imani Bailey from TCU. So we got an autograph.
And that one's numbered too, I think.
Yes, it is. We also have somebody who we might see down the road in college football. Prism Break, Julian Sayin.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's right. The guy we think will be Ohio State's QB1 next year, Julian Sayin. Trophy hunting Xavier Worthy. We got a Michael Penix Jr., Ed Reed, the guy with the greatest accent in football, Xavier Legette in his South Carolina uniform.
You have a Brian Kelly card?
I want Xavier Legette talking to Brian Kelly, but Brian Kelly is doing the fake Louisiana accent.
And he's
also got an AD Mitchell.
He's ripping
All
cracked
right,
ices
so
and he's putting down at the table and not telling us what they're numbered out of. What a rookie move. You got cracked ices there, man.
I love these. Hold on, let's find out if the Julian's. So the Julian Sayin is not numbered.
The colored ones are that have the
yes. The Imani Bailey is a numbered to 75.
Electric.
And then the Ed Reed is a number to 149. Ed Reed right here.
Love that.
So beautiful.
Thank you for doing that for me. I appreciate it. I needed I was like,
I've been the same way, but about something else, because we haven't been together since you went on Finebaum the other day. And
oh boy.
We got a clip. The fine folks at the Paul Finebaum show graciously have let us grab this clip from the show with Ari just going off. Ari took on Paul.
What I don't understand, though, is how a tweet like that, or Lane Kiffin, who did a lot more tweeting than I did over the weekend, and all of the people in my part of the world, how is our discomfort with what we saw, our comments like the one we're showing right now, which is exactly true, how is that, in your estimation, a threat? I realize we can disagree, but I'm curious about that part of it.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate the question, Paul. The thing that I wonder is the people who make up the playoff committee are people, right? And they're not supposed to take previous years into account. They're not supposed to operate any differently based on outside, reasoning. Or they're not supposed to take outside reasoning into account on how they operate. But Paul, I have a lot of respect for you. I wouldn't be on the show. I wouldn't be writing about you. I wouldn't be engaging with you if I didn't. And I think that and I know, and anybody who follows college football, whether they like you, me, or anyone else, you're a very influential person, okay? And when you tweet things and when you assert things, you don't only change the mind of the people who are consuming your tweets, your messages, your show, you're also creating a viewpoint that the committee had done something wrong. And if the committee had done something wrong, then what do you do when you do something wrong? You fix it. So my question and my threat really is, the usage of the threat is that if the committee is to change the way that they operate a year from now, and you have some SEC teams that have good players and draft picks and recruited well, who frankly blew it with the opportunities that they did have, and we get to a place in college football where we are putting the quote unquote best teams in based on the way that they're constructed and not necessarily what they've done, then we are going to arrive at a place in college football where the games that we consume, or the wins that these teams get, or the conference affiliations they have, are meaningless. And then you send that message, and then you get to a place where Alabama is just rewarded for being Alabama, and Georgia is rewarded for being Georgia, and it's not the merit. Now, the thing that I have the hardest time with here, Paul, is that making the playoff is a privilege, okay? To win a national championship, you don't only have to win 4 postseason games. You have to do in the season.
That would have gone on for 9 minutes. I didn't stop.
I know. We can't use the whole clip because we can't use the whole segment. We don't want to just crib their show. But I love the car view. And
you know what it was?
No.
So
tell us.
I don't know about this. How often do you brush your teeth?
At least twice a day.
So I brush my teeth twice a day, but I guess I've been doing a really bad job at it. And frankly speaking, I don't floss. I was in a very intrusive mouth cleaning at the time because, like, I was on my way to the dentist when they called and asked if I could go on.
Gross debridement.
And I had to get like a deep clean, like where they were like going into my gums and getting plaque out of my gums. So like I need to be a better brusher, I guess. I'm going to go get a Sonic Care or whatever. But like my mouth was bleeding. Like I got up in the middle of the cleaning and I said, I need to take a 10-minute break, and went out to my car to do that. That's how much I wanted to be on the show. And the thing that I was most disappointed about, more than anything, and I know that this is what Finebaum does when people come on, was I was hoping for more back and forth. Like he just let me kind of recite my position and then didn't push back at what I thought.
And then you let the callers rip you afterward. Yes.
And then the callers come on and rip me. And that's okay. Like, I know that's how the show works. You know, you have people that, you know, it's fine. It's great. It's been successful, and he's on TV for 3 hours every day for a reason. But I was hoping to get more pushback or more of his thoughts on how he viewed it and like what he thinks should have been different. Because I don't know that he was in a position where he could have won any debate with me about that. Like, I just don't know.
Here's the thing. I think there are people who, well, Lane Kiffin, obviously,
and I hate that he uses Lane Kiffin as a shield, because Lane Kiffin has a dog in the fight. Like, Lane Kiffin is just positioning for his team. Like, you're a media member.
But I think a lot of people just wanted to complain about the fact that there were 4 blowouts, but not offer really a solution. Because you could say, oh, you could have put Alabama. You could have put Alabama. Alabama could have been blown out too. The reason Alabama was in the mix with those other teams was they got blown out by a 6-6 team. Otherwise, they would have just been in. So that wasn't going to necessarily solve the problem people were complaining about. People were complaining because there were 4 blowouts. Sometimes they're blowouts. Like the Christmas Day NFL games sucked. It would have been nice if the Steelers had put up a fight, or if the Texans had put up a fight, but they didn't. So sometimes that happens.
Yeah. So that's the thing too. It's like, I complain a lot, but I like to complain when I have solutions. And when you offer a solution that doesn't make sense, I get really upset. So Andy, I don't know if you thought I was dramatic. I think you went back and read the story when we were eating pizza. But to me, the number one threat to college football isn't NIL. It's not rev share. It's not transferring. It's not all the things that everybody says. It's not realignment. Because as you like to point out, and it's so true, college football is an entertainment product, and we're addicted. Like, we will watch no matter what because we love football and we love college football, and I think it's beautiful. You cannot introduce apathy into the mix there. If you tell a large portion of the country that their team's wins don't matter, that's dangerous. I really, really do think that. And like, if you are a person who believes that the SEC should get in with 3 losses over 2 loss and 1 loss teams as a result of their strength of schedule, even though they are rewarded for that strength of schedule, then you don't know this about yourself yet, but you don't want to even play the same sport as SMU in other teams like that. You want them separated. You want a super league, and you might get what you want one day. But while everybody's in the same,
you bloviated and didn't answer his question. Sean, he answered for 9 minutes. We didn't play all 9 minutes. And you just heard why.
His threat is his potential influence and how that influence, not that I think that Paul Finebaum himself can change the way the committee operates, but by creating a environment where a large portion of the country believes and perceives the committee had done something wrong because of their displeasure with the way that the games went, changes and triggers the way people view it, and of course, eventually how it operates. And I think the perpetuation of the notion that they did something wrong or that they're incompetent is dangerous. I think it's very dangerous.
Well, we're going to see what happens. I have a column at On3 right now if you want to read, because I think the bigger problem is the misseeding of the tournament, deliberately misseeding the tournament. I think they're going to probably have to change that. And I think it's something they can change even between this year and next. And if you want to look at how it would have looked had the tournament just been seeded straight, I did that. And I also did, you've got the idea for the 14 team, which is what the Big Ten is pushing for starting in 2026, what that would have looked like, which would have put Alabama and Miami into the mix. And you would have had, like, for instance, you would have had a Miami Penn State first round game at Penn State. I think that probably would have been a good game. I think that probably would have been really interesting. So I think my bigger problem isn't the laws. My bigger problem is, in this case, Georgia and Oregon won their conference championship games and got punished, and the teams that lost their conference championship games got rewarded with an easier path. And that's a completely
different discussion. And you were right. My main concern is making sure that the right 12 teams went. And let me ask you this just bluntly, because I don't know that I've even asked you this, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that the 12 teams that should have been in were the 12 teams that got in?
I don't care. I don't care who got in. You're in that mix because you're not really that great. You're flawed. So I don't care which flawed teams get in and which flawed teams get left out.
No, but based on your preference, though, do you believe that they did it right this year? Or do you think that they did it weirdly?
I don't care.
I care.
Okay, well, then you care and I won't.
I think they got it right, and I care.
Okay, I don't care, and I don't care how they did it. And you could have put Alabama in, and they could have gotten blown out too, because we watched them get blown out in Norman. Like, we saw it happen.
That's where I just think that's where we fundamentally disagree, though. Like, if they would have put Alabama in, like, the paradigm of the sport would have been rocked, in my opinion.
Don't care. All right, we got games. The next 3 days. Full of games. We got 3 bowl games today. We got a whole day on Friday. We got a whole day on Saturday. This is going to be tremendous. And our friends at PrizePicks have begun populating the board. If you're not playing PrizePicks already, what are you doing? Best daily fantasy game in America. Download the app. Use the code Staples. Play $5. Get $50 instantly. And right now, there are all kinds of squares. For instance, the Pinstripe Bowl, Ari. How long have we talked about, will Nebraska make a bowl game? What's going to happen if Nebraska finally breaks through and makes a bowl game? They made a bowl game. Dylan Raiola, 198.5 passing yards, more or less, against Grayson James and the Boston College Eagles. Grayson James, remember, is the one who replaced Thomas Castellanos at the end of the season. Bill O'Brien's team has won 3 of 4 coming into this game. And then Nebraska, of course, coming off a very tough loss to Iowa, which seems like a million years ago. But Ari, let's just talk in general about this. What do you need to see from Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola and the Nebraska player? Nebraska's had some changes, like their defense coordinator left for Florida State, a lot of their defensive players in the portal. But what do you want to see out of Nebraska in this last game of the season?
What do you think? I'm very curious what your answer to that question is, because, like, I don't know. Like, I think that being there and existing there is what I needed to see. Like, I think the fact that they got to practice the last 2 weeks is what we need to see. Like, right? Like, I don't know if there's going to be any sort of performance or something that's going to make me feel differently about Nebraska going into the game. I think they took a important and needed step this year as a program. Now, they still suffered some losses that felt like old Nebraska-y. But I also
including the last one, the most recent one, I felt like was the most Nebraska-y of them all.
Yeah. But also, too, in order to change a culture and to instill winning, you have to, see improvement. It's kind of like losing weight, right? You don't lose 80 pounds in a month, but when you lose 7, it feels pretty good, right? And then you keep going and you keep going, you chip away at it. And I think that that's kind of what Nebraska's season to me illustrates. And, they went out and got some players in the portal, conceivably think that Raiola is going to take a big step next year. The sophomore jump is a big one. And you have to feel pretty good about the direction. Now, the hope is that, I guess what you'd want to see maybe is Raiola having an awesome bowl game, and then like they weaponize his rising star to try to get more players to come play with him, right? Like that's the whole thing. But
yeah,
they have a quarterback and they made a bowl game. And I think for his true freshman season, one that I thought maybe had much more promise than it ended up having. Like at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh, this Nebraska team might get the 7-0 or 8-0. Like that was on the
Colorado
table.
game was fool's gold for us, for Nebraska.
But also, too, super, super impressive still. Like that aged well for them. Like you would think if you would have gone back in time and said, Andy, right after the Nebraska-Colorado game, and I would have said, Andy, Colorado is going to be in the mix for a playoff spot in late November. Like, how would that have changed? You want to talk about fool's gold? That would have turned into a crypto scheme for me if I would have known that.
I think, like, if you'd told me as we were watching that game unfold
that Nebraska's doing that to a playoff contender. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have blown my mind. But now the thing is, the reason Nebraska did that to a playoff contender, the middle of that defense, those guys are going to be in the NFL next year. They're not going to be at Nebraska next year. So it's up to Rule to replace them. It's up to Rule to figure out, defensive staffing and what that's going to look like and what the defense is going to look like. And they've got to replace some guys out of the portal. They've got, some big portal gets already, but they also have some big portal losses. So we'll see. But this will be an interesting one. Another really interesting one, the Armed Forces Bowl tomorrow, Oklahoma and Navy. Michael Hawkins. We talked a lot about Michael Hawkins in the middle of the season on this show because remember, Oklahoma replaced Jackson Arnold and they were like, well, let's see if it was the quarterback or if it was just that all the receivers were hurt and the offensive line's not very good. Turns out it wasn't the quarterback. Turns out the offensive line wasn't very good and all the receivers were hurt. And that's the problem. But Michael Hawkins did a hell of a job when he was in there, given what he had to deal with. The Auburn win, I think, is going to go down as the highlight here. John Mateer's coming at Oklahoma. Michael Hawkins is playing in this game. We think he's staying, but like the news on Christmas Day that Cole Gonzalez is also coming to Oklahoma. He was the Western Carolina quarterback the last 2 years who threw for 1,000,000 yards. Like he got hurt this year. The game before he got hurt, he threw for 620 yards. I know Cole because he lived in my neighborhood for a long time. But his dad is Billy Gonzalez, the Florida receivers coach. But I would think he's coming to be Mateer's backup. So I don't know where that leaves Michael Hawkins in this situation, but he has a chance to lead Oklahoma to another win here. So I've rooted for him the entire time because his attitude about all of this situation has been great. 165.5 passing yards on PrizePicks. So you have to go more or less on that. I didn't put Navy QB Blake Horvath's passing number on there. Put his rushing number on there because they're an option team. 81.5 rushing yards for Blake Horvath. So the last time we saw Navy, they were putting it to Army, which was the best win of Navy's season. Ari, no Danny Stutzman in this game for Oklahoma. The defense is still very good, but is not going to have everybody. And then obviously Oklahoma's offense is going to be, not a lot of guys there because there's been a lot of portal losses. What do we think is going to happen here?
Yeah, it's funny because it's the final look before we all go into Oklahoma frenzy mode. Like there are two teams that I think are going to own the offseason this year. And I think those two teams are Oklahoma and Auburn.
Yeah. Oh, I think you might be right about that. LSU and Texas Tech would like a word.
Yeah,
that's pretty big in the portal too. But yeah.
But I think that when you go get a stud at the quarterback position the way that Oklahoma did, it makes you an inherently interesting program going into the offseason. And, we know that Oklahoma is going to have a good defense, and I am very fascinated to see what happens with Michael Hawkins. And, I wonder, too, if in situations like this, if this is a showcase for him as a portal asset. You go out there and you play your ass off and you look good. There are
and how do you not like this guy? Because, he's got thrown in, he's been benched. He knows the guy's coming in who's supposed to be the guy. Like, and all he's done
He's
is
young.
Like,
he's young.
yeah, but all he's
like,
done has been like, what does the team need me to do? Like, I love that.
yeah. And he could stay and start there in 2 years. Like, it doesn't mean that he like his career's over by any stretch of the imagination. But also, too, you have to understand that Brent Venables is not in a, well, we've got to develop our quarterback mode. Like, he's in win next year mode, because things could get really uncomfortable for him if this happens again next year, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, very much
Oklahoma's
so.
not
Like,
accustomed to losing.
no, and like the mulligans run out. Like, you have to be good next year. Like, he's already had 2 what Oklahoma considers terrible seasons, and then he's got a 10-win season sandwiched in the middle of them. So yeah, he's got to win. It's a win now situation. So yeah, this is a really weird one, and it's the whole, like, it's hard to have a a good backup quarterback in this day and age. And so if Michael Hawkins wants to stay and potentially be the quarterback of the future at Oklahoma, that's great for Oklahoma, because that gives them potentially like a Gunnar Stockton situation, because we're going to talk about Georgia when we pick these games in a minute. But like, Gunnar Stockton stayed. He could have left, but he stayed, and now he's going to be Georgia's QB1 in the playoff. It's hard to have a backup quarterback who knows what you're doing. Like, it's
I also
hard.
think that it's incredibly hard for a backup quarterback to take the leap of faith of, I'm going to stay and be the guy in 2 years, because guess what could happen in 2 years?
Yeah. And we don't know. Like, he could ball out in this one, hop in the portal, be somewhere else. No one would blame him. They've taken 2 quarterbacks out of the portal already. So
yeah,
it's understandable. But I think that's going to be a really interesting game. You got those squares, Michael Hawkins Jr., Blake Horvath on PrizePicks. There's also multiple other squares for all the games today, all the games tomorrow. The Saturday game should be getting populated here in the next few hours. Download PrizePicks, play $5, get $50 instantly. Use the code STAPLES. All right, Ari, it is now timed to pick the quarterfinal games. Let's start with a message from our friends at MasterClass, because they're bringing us this first pick.
You don't need to know everything there is to know about sports in order to win at sports betting.
Stop betting blind. Learn how to beat the odds from our team of sharps.
As long as there have been sports, there have been people betting on them.
This is not luck. It's good strategy, and we're going to show you how.
If you're going to get emotional, don't bet against your home team.
Never overbet your bankroll. You need to be comfortable with the amount that you bet.
An edge is simply having an advantage over the sportsbook.
You might find 16 sports books that have the Boston Celtics at 12-1 to win the championship. And then there might be one that's offering 16-1. They may have just made a mistake.
Find the best price. It can't be simpler.
Find those easy edges and then turn them into profits. The average bettor likes to bet on the favorites and the overs because they like to see things happen.
Betting against things happening is where there's historically been a lot more value.
Learn about
bankroll management, prop bets,
The difference between the point spread and the money line.
Top-down betting.
Handicapping.
Money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
I'm Rob Pizzola.
Nick Costos.
Captain Jack Andrews.
Gina Fiore.
Rufus Peabody.
I'm Joe Fortenbaugh, and this is MasterClass.
That is the MasterClass sports betting class. They have classes that can help you in every aspect of your life. Go to masterclass.com/on3 for up to 50% off. They always do good deals around the holidays. Now's the time. You can get a subscription and have access to their entire library. Masterclass.com/on3. This is your Masterclass pick of the week. The Boise State Penn State game in the Fiesta Bowl. Oh boy, Ari. So the last time we saw Boise State was way back in the Mountain West Championship game. We obviously saw Penn State crush SMU last week. This is the one where we said Penn State loses to Oregon. We see the bracket. We're like, oh, Penn State's got the easiest path into the semis. I don't think it's that easy. Look, Penn State's a 10.5 point favorite in this game. But Boise State plays a style that does not lend itself to meltdowns. So I don't think you will see them just hand them the game the way SMU did. I think they will be fighting the entire way. They will be in it the entire way. And the question will be, when a team with really talented front seven sells out and loads the box to stop Ashton Genty, what does that look like? Now, we actually have seen that before with the number one team in the country, Oregon. And guess what? They didn't stop him. He averaged 7.7 yards a carry against them.
Did they, I need to go back and watch that game because it's been 3 months, but did they sell out to stop the run, or had the legend of Ashton Genty started by then?
Oh, they knew. He scored 6 touchdowns against Georgia Southern the week before.
Yeah, I mean, they knew.
They watched tape at Oregon. Like they weren't sitting there going, we're going to sit back in case Maddox Madsen goes off on us.
Let me ask you this. Does Boise have anything that can beat Penn State that's not Ashton Genty?
Yes, but it's not on offense. Boise State's defense, second in the nation in sacks, second in the nation in sacks per game. So they average 4 sacks a game. You're getting pressure. It means you're potentially forcing turnovers. It means you're causing negative plays. It means you're killing drives. That is the other thing besides Ashton Genty. That's the other thing that gives them a chance. Now,
so a Penn State meltdown.
Causing a Penn State. And it doesn't even have to be a meltdown because, like I said, I don't think Boise State will melt down. I think Boise State will just kind of be, even keel, don't make a lot of mistakes. The problem Boise State will have is if Penn State is stopping Ashton Genty, because remember, Ashton Genty after contact was probably the second leading rusher in the country this year.
Mm-hmm.
If Ashton Genty after contact is not having a great game, so if he's not like his line, their offensive line is not that great. So Ashton Genty gets the ball, he goes 2 yards and he gets hit. Now what he usually does is goes 5 more yards after he gets hit. But if he only goes 1 more yard after he gets hit, Boise State's in trouble.
Yeah. So multifaceted thoughts on this. One, does the Fiesta Bowl magic mean anything to you? Does the fact that Boise State is appropriately returning to Glendale mean anything to you? And
it does to me because I was there for the Oklahoma game. I was there. I watched like that. That was they were okay. For those who didn't watch the whole Boise State Oklahoma game, this was after the 2006 season, January 1st, 2007. Boise State was kicking the crap out of Oklahoma for 2.5 quarters. Like we were like, this Oklahoma must be embarrassed. And remember, this wasn't a particularly great Oklahoma team. Adrian Peterson was on this team, but he was hurt most of that season. And we were like, oh, Boise State's going to run away with this. And then Oklahoma comes back. And all of a sudden, Oklahoma is winning, and Boise State is in an impossible situation. They had a 4th and 18. So the hook and lateral play was on 4th and 18. Oh. And then, of course, you had what happened in overtime. Do you remember what happened the first play of overtime in that game? Because Oklahoma got the ball first.
I don't. Remind me.
25-yard Adrian Peterson touchdown run.
Oh.
It was like, oh, this is over. There's no way. This is done.
Yeah. I remember the highlights of it, but that would be a good rewatchables.
Oh my God. It was so amazing. It was incredible. So now Penn State, as Steven pointed out in the chat, is also undefeated in the Fiesta Bowl. Like one of Penn State's greatest victories against Miami after the 1986 season in the Fiesta Bowl, where they just came out and thumped what everybody thought was the national championship team. And then Penn State is the national champ. So I think this could be a lot of fun as long as Boise State doesn't make mistakes. Now, we just showed Drew Aller on screen, and I think he's a big key to this because I don't know about you, Ari. My opinion of Drew Aller has changed quite a bit in the last few games of the season. It was happening before the Big Ten championship game, but the Drew Aller we saw in the Big Ten championship game and the one we've seen through the end of the season, like he's a much better athlete, I think, than I realized. And when he scrambles and keeps some plays alive, like he's very tough to deal with when he's just not like, because before it felt like he was totally risk averse. He wouldn't take any chances. He wouldn't throw the ball down the field. And I feel like he's gotten confident, so he's throwing the ball down the field more. But also, if you get some pressure on him, he can squeak out of there, and then he is going for a while.
Yeah. So I've got two concerns, one for each team, Andy. One is we've analyzed this Penn State game or this Penn State team all year. They don't have great receivers. So is that going to show up at some point?
Yeah. I think Harrison Wallace he's improved. So
but I don't know if
better as season's gone on.
I don't know if I'm 100% convinced that Penn State's offense is just fixed. Okay, so if you have a really good defensive performance against Penn State, like they struggle to score, and frankly speaking, it's not like their offense lit up SMU. SMU donated a ton of field position points in that game.
There's there was a point in this. There's a point in the second quarter where it really should have been 14-7 SMU, and instead it was, what was it, 14-0 or 14-3? It
was 14-0, and there was a certain point where the game could have been tied late in the game, or SMU could have been winning, because the swing happened too when SMU was in the edge of the red zone. But then the other major concern I have is that we've seen a lot of really good running backs in the sport in the past. We have seen them a ton, and when they play another team that's got really good front seven and sells out, it's hard to beat another team with just a running back. So if you don't think that they have anything else offensively, like I just kind of feel like this is going to be a physical mauling in the way that we've seen Georgia do to teams in the past, because usually when Georgia plays teams in the playoff, the talent gap overall is akin to what you would see in this Penn State Boise game. And I just don't know that Boise has enough, even with Genty, to get there.
So I see people in the chat saying, fix the audio. We can't tell if there's anything going on with the audio. It had been going fine. So if there is, let us know. And what we'll do is we'll continue with the show, because we can't stop it now, but we'll put the clips out later with the better audio. But I see some folks saying the audio is fine. So we will power on.
And usually when it's not going well, you and I can tell. Like I hear you completely fine. So
it might be a StreamYard issue where they're saying some of the audio is skipping. So but don't worry, we will also have clips up of the show where we'll use the clean feed that we get locally. So we'll take care of you on this one. But this is going to be a very interesting game, I think. And so part of me, and I'm going to tell you who I'm picking right now. I'm picking Boise State. I'm picking Boise State in this game. Money line.
What?
Money line. Because something interesting has to happen at some point in this tournament.
This isn't basketball, Andy.
Something interesting has to happen at some point in this tournament. No, and this is the one. Maybe it's me being sentimental about the Fiesta Bowl magic. Or maybe it's me saying the style of play here suggests that they're not going to just hand the ball to Penn State over and over and let Penn State control the game. But that's why.
I push back at the sentiment that something crazy has to happen, because we're accustomed to something crazy has to happen in the basketball tournament, and this just is not basketball. So, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm not going into it. Like when you fill out a bracket for basketball at the beginning of the tournament, you just sometimes just pick some grab-ass matchup of a 12-5 game or whatever, because it happens every year, and there's no real analysis other than like it happens every year, so it's going to happen this year. Like this is the first go of it, and all the favorites won by $1 million in the first round. I feel like that's because it's football. So, I'm going to go with Penn State covering in this game. We are on polar opposite sides of what we are with this.
So this again is our MasterClass pick of the week. So we'll give, if you take that MasterClass sports betting class, you'll learn. So Raymond asks in the chat, is money line same as points? No, money line means I'm picking Boise State to win outright. And in this particular case, in this particular case, that means you would win more if you win, because
Was it 3-1?
they are right. They are a double. It is plus 330.
Yep.
So if you bet 100 on Boise State on the money line to win, you would win $330. Is how that works.
Because you're not taking the points. You're just taking a dog to win straight up, and not just a dog, a pretty massive dog. So that's a pretty good. That's a pretty, you're putting yourself out there on this, Andy. Like
I know, and I it's not. I was looking at all of these games, and I just believe something crazy is going to happen. I don't see something crazy happening in Arizona State, Texas, and then the other two games, the teams are too evenly matched for anything to be crazy, for any one result to be crazy. This is one where Boise State does not make a lot of mistakes, like historically and this season. They're very well coached. Like, they just do what they're supposed to do. And the lack of meltdown, like with SMU, you had seen them do it against Clemson in the ACC championship game, where they started that slowly. And we said, if they start slowly, they will dig a hole that Penn State will never let them come out of. I don't think Boise State will dig themselves a hole. I think they will make sure this is competitive and give themselves a chance in the second half.
When Georgia was Georgia, and they played teams in the past, like from the Big 12 or whatever, they had a talent advantage that was palpable and eventually showed itself. And I understand that we are in the portal era and the NIL era, but the talent advantage, I think, from a top to bottom standpoint in any of these games, maybe not also in Texas and Arizona State, but this one in particular is pretty lopsided. And I know that we don't analyze games based on talent anymore because you're not allowed to in the NIL era. But Penn State is going to boa constrictor them in this game. I guarantee it. I'm going to take Penn State, and I'm going to lay the points.
Guaranteed. Ari's lead pipe block of the week.
I think that Ashton Genty can rush for 130 yards, and they could lose 34-17.
So this is
on the table.
This is let Michael Jordan score 36 and control Scottie Pippen and Tony Kukoc.
And listen, I got a warning in the chat. Be careful. Boise State fans can be relentless. It's like, I know. I'm just picking a game here. If I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt, I would take every single thing I've ever owned. State has a rather
large fan base that gets online. It's actually online too. It's fine.
I just don't know if they have enough from top to bottom to exist in this game.
Right.
And like the difference between this game and the Fiesta Bowl was the last Fiesta Bowl that they played in, or the one that we referenced, is that it means something, and both teams are really, really, really amped up to win. So
Vance in the chat, didn't we say the same thing about Ohio State, Michigan?
I don't think that the talent advantage in that game, especially on Michigan's defense, like they've got one really, really great player, and they've got some other nice pieces, but like Penn State has 15 draft picks on their team. Like, it's still a G5 program, and maybe I'm underestimating them. Okay. And if you're right, and Boise comes out, like, throw stuff at me, throw eggs at me. I don't know. But like,
I'm not going to throw anything at you. I'm going to laugh and point and be like, told you so.
Yeah, you're an idiot. You're a dumbass.
But you also, listen, Boise State's a double-digit dog. Like, there's probably a higher likelihood of you saying that to me after this thing. So
I'm not going to make fun of you because you're the one who actually like put yourself out there. And
I feel like my reasoning is sound for this. Like, it's not, yes, I said something has to happen, but I picked, if Boise State was a team that was kind of boom or bust, that had a quarterback that took tons of chances, like, I don't think I'd be picking this. I think I'd be saying, no, the two double-digit spread games are going to be blowouts, and that's all. But I'm just not, I don't feel that way. So
yeah, and if you're right, James Franklin should just drive home from Phoenix.
God, I don't know. Listen, that discourse, I don't even want to think about that right now, because like we were talking about earlier in the show, the guy just gets piled on by everyone.
If they lose to Boise as
Oh,
an
God.
11-point favorite, it would be an absolute freaking disaster for him.
Yeah.
So that's
We'll have
what-
plenty
the
to talk
column I
about next
wrote.
week if that happens.
I know
for
you're trying
sure.
to move the show along, but like,
Yeah.
the reward for Penn State for being the 6th seed was the easiest path to the semis, right?
Yeah.
But when you make a deal with the devil,
that's right.
There's another side to this, which is if
That's
you
right,
don't
that's right.
advance to the semis, it's the worst possible outcome for James Franklin. So
there's always a price. There's always a price. All right, let us move to the Peach Bowl. Arizona State versus Texas. This pick brought to you by Axia Time.
Whoa.
Maybe you want to commemorate the Sun Devils' trip to the college football playoff. You can do that with a gorgeous timepiece from Axia Time. AxiaTime.com is the place to go. They are the official timepiece of the college football playoff, of the Heisman Trophy. I have a beautiful Odysseus 2 that I'm wearing right now that I'm wearing more and more. I think I've ditched my Apple Watch permanently because I am loving this thing. Get compliments everywhere I go. And also, it's kind of unwired me. Like, I love being able to look down and just see what time it is and not that my garage door is open. So,
Andy, when you have a nice watch, the Apple Watch becomes a utility for working out, and that's it for me. Like you have too nice of a watch now to wear an Apple Watch.
This thing is beautiful. I switched it to the orange band to get the little go, because you can go a little more casual, you can go a little more dressy.
Nice.
I have a nice stainless steel band that came with it too, and I'll go back to that if I want to go a little more dressy. But I went to the casual. It's awesome. It's so beautiful. I just like watching the secondhand sweep. They are Swiss made, but I know what you're thinking. Oh, I got to break the bank for this. No, you do not. So you're seeing that Sun Devils watch right there. You want to commemorate the trip. Limited to 100 pieces. Public sale is happening right now. So go to axiatime.com and get yourself a beautiful watch that people will compliment you on wherever you go. Ari, let's go to Atlanta. Texas, Arizona State. Arizona State's a 13.5-point dog in this game. This is the one where, like, Sam Levitt has been awesome. We talk a lot about Cam Scatabo, who's been tremendous for Arizona State. But Sam Levitt, I think, really has been
underrated.
The underrated piece of this team, which is crazy when we're talking about the quarterback. But our guy Cody Belair told us this when he transferred there from Michigan State. Like, this guy's going to be a dude, and he's been awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because I just got done getting off a talent high horse here, and maybe that's just like G5 discrimination, but the spread on this game is bigger.
Which feels weird.
Well, it's not weird when you boil it down. It's Texas has more talent than Penn State, probably top to bottom, right? And Arizona State has been pieced together in large part through the portal, and it's hard to analyze how talented that they are from that aspect. So I'm torn on this one. So I'm going to let you go first because I don't know which direction I'm leaning. Like, I know who I think is going to win, but that doesn't make me, Nikola Tesla kind of figuring that one out. Like, who do you like in the spread here? Unless you go money line again, big funds over there.
Ari, we talked about this last week. Out of the 24 offenses and defenses in the college football playoff, which is the one I trust the most, it's the Texas defense. That has not changed. I think the Clemson offense they just played is probably more talented than the Arizona State offense they're going to play. I think the Arizona State defense...
I don't know that you could make the case that it's better than Arizona State's offense. I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know that's any better. I think they're probably about the same. But I think Arizona State's defense is probably also about the same as Clemson's defense. And you saw it. Like, Texas just had to run against Clemson's defense. They didn't really have to do anything else. And remember, they lost 2 offensive linemen and a tailback in the second quarter and still just mashed them for 2 quarters. Like, they're going to get, I believe they're going to get 2 of those guys back. I think Wisner and Majors, I believe, are going to be back. I don't know about Cam Williams. But so I just, I think Texas's defense is what it is. It's, again, the most trustworthy unit in the playoff. So they're going to keep Arizona State below its normal output offensively. And I just think Texas has too many weapons. I'm taking Texas to cover here.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. If you were upset about the blowouts from the first round, I've got bad news for you. Very similar matchups to the first round are existing in the second round. Like, it's not over.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
So people in the chat complaining about the number 4 seeds, a 2-touchdown underdog. It's because they deliberately misseeded the tournament. Like, they designed it this way. They're going to undesign that. They're going to have to, because it's dumb. It shouldn't be like this. This should not have happened. Like, Texas and Penn State should not have gotten easier paths for losing their conference championship games. So this is something they can fix for next year, according to the people I've talked to. They should fix it. And just you just seed it straight. You don't say that conference champions have to be the top 4 seeds. It's very simple.
Yep.
It's fixable. This game should not be happening this way. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
So,
and also too, if Arizona State would have played a first round game, that probably would have fixed the blowout problem in the first round too. Like, if you got like an Arizona State SMU type game, it would have been a more competitive game. But then again, that boils my blood, because it's like, this is the playoff, and we're supposed to be
actually, Arizona State, if you'd seeded it straight, Arizona State would have gone to Columbus. They would have played Ohio State in Columbus.
Oh,
so there probably would have been a blowout there. But Tennessee SMU would have been a hell of a game.
Yeah, maybe. Or that might have been a blowout too. I don't know.
Who knows?
I'm with you. This is, it's simple. If Texas can stop Cam Scatteraboo, then they're going to win by 100.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part, is we don't want to see that at this level of the playoff. Like, we want that to be done in the first round. So, and I hope that Kenny Dillingham and company can make this more fun than Ari and I are making it out to be. I would love that. Because if this game goes down to the wire and Cam Scatteraboo's balling out, like, come on.
I just don't get sentimental about like the Cinderella stuff. We'll talk about it if it happens.
I'm not even sentimental about that. I just want more even matchups, or I want the teams that played the best in the regular season to have the easiest path. Like, if there's going to be a blowout, I want the number 1 team blowing somebody out.
They will.
The number 1 team shouldn't be sitting there having to struggle.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Oregon got bent into a bad spot this year.
Yeah. Vance says, my bet is they'll fix the seating if the Big Ten and SEC decide to give more money to the other conferences. No, they don't have to. Because here's the deal. This contract ends after this season. And if you're the Big Ten and the SEC, you're like, we'll let you keep playing in our playoff. How's that sound? And the other conference will be like, sounds good. Like, that's how that's going to work. But yeah, they do need to fix it, because the way this was designed, Ari, if you think about it, when they started designing this version of the playoff in January 2019. Back then, there was still a Pac-12. Texas and Oklahoma were still in the SEC. Like, it was a very different outlook. Like, if you looked at this year's playoff through that lens, Oregon's your Pac-12 champ. Texas is your Big 12 champ. Georgia's your SEC champ. Ohio State or Penn State's your Big 10 champ. Like, then it makes more sense as to how that would work. But that's not how it works anymore. And so they have to change it for the world that exists now. Let us move to New Orleans. This is going to be a very fun game. Notre Dame versus Georgia. So we now have official word from Georgia that Carson Beck is out. We knew Carson Beck was going to be out for this game. We've known for a while. But we now have official word. He had UCL surgery. That's an elbow ligament. It's a surgery more common for baseball pitchers. But he had that. He's out. Gunnar Stockton is your QB1 for the Bulldogs. We've only seen him for a half, but it was a half against the Texas defense in which he looked better than Carson Beck had looked in the 3 halves that he had played against the Texas defense.
This is where the rubber meets the road for me, man. This is it right here. I'm super excited for the Ohio State-Oregon game, but this is the one that I think we learned the most. I don't know if you leave the Ohio State Oregon game feeling like, oh, okay, they're good. Like, we know both are really good. Like, there is a large segment of the population that has underestimated Notre Dame for 3 months. And I have been steadfast on this show, and you to the same extent, maybe not as bluntly, but also you. I think you were with me.
Oh yeah,
About telling people Notre Dame was legit. And I have them in my national championship game. That bracket that I put out got a lot of eyeballs and a lot of angry people. And I just believe that Notre Dame is a better, more complete team than Georgia this year. And the line opened as Notre Dame is a slight favorite and immediately flipped over to Georgia being a slight favorite. I'm very curious where this line closes when the late sharp money comes in.
Yeah, because I think it goes back toward Notre Dame for a little bit.
It's going to. Yeah, I think so. I think Notre Dame's going to win the football game. And I think that Notre Dame is going to do so looking as good as they've looked in 20 years. That's
so I hate that Riley Mills is done for the season. You and I were there in South Bend. He was he hurt his knee sacking Curtis Rourke, and he's out for the year. That sucks because they just got Howard Cross back. Riley Mills is one of the defensive tackles for Notre Dame. Howard Cross
terrible injury luck this year.
It is overall. And that's what I was about to get to though. Like Notre Dame has overcome that multiple times this season, which speaks to the depth of this team. Like this is a deeper Notre Dame team than any of those Brian Kelly Notre Dame teams. Marcus Freeman has done a better job stocking the roster with talent. This Notre Dame team, from a talent standpoint, is capable of playing with the Georgias and the Ohio States and the Oregons. Like, because it used to be that those teams, when somebody went down, they would have a few special players, and if one of them went down, it was over. Now, I mean, think about it. They lose Charles Jagasaw, who's supposed to be their starting left tackle. They lost him in the preseason. They've been playing a true freshman there all year. They're still really good on the offensive line. Like it's amazing how well they've been able to overcome some of this stuff. So
it's a combination of both things, Andy. One, it's the underestimation of Notre Dame, but it's also the overestimation of Georgia too. Because like our brains are conditioned to look at Georgia as a juggernaut. And I'm not saying that they're not. If they won the national title this year, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world.
Georgia can win the national title this year, Ari. But this is not 2021 or 2022 Georgia. Like 2021 Georgia would kick the crap out of everybody in this tournament. It wouldn't even be close.
If Georgia ends up winning the game, I'll look like an idiot, and Georgia will be good still and whatever. But I think that this Notre Dame team is built very similarly, and it's the closest that Notre Dame has ever been from an athletic standpoint to a team like Georgia, because they've gotten better and teams in the SEC have gotten less deep. So listen, we'll see. I think that like the one thing I'm going to tell you before you come back next week and call me an idiot is that my mindset is confirmed by the spread, right? Like this isn't like some sort of like 13.
Well, and that's why you're assuming I'm going to call you an idiot. Look, we're going to be on opposite sides of this. I can tell you that right now. But I don't think you're an idiot for picking Notre Dame. I think this is going to be a close game.
And like, listen, Kirby Smart is a better, more seasoned coach at the moment than Marcus Freeman. Like, there's no question that matters. I think that maybe the reason why Clemson was the best first round game is because of the experience that Dabo Swinney has playing in these things. Like, I think that stuff matters too. And Marcus Freeman is still a young coach who has made some pretty catastrophic mistakes in big moments that you hope that he's grown from. Like, there are intangibles here too, but like, we're talking about Notre Dame and their bad injury luck, and like not talking at all about the fact that Georgia doesn't have their quarterback. Like,
well, that's what we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
Because
so
I don't know that I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt. Obviously it hurts losing Carson Beck, but the small sample size of Gunnar Stockton we saw against the defense that I've said multiple times is the one I think is the best in the country, the Texas defense. I like his chances now that he's had 3 weeks to prep with the ones. I think I watched
very good. Yeah,
I watched the way the team played for him, the way those guys rallied around him. the way they sounded talking about him, this guy is a dude. His teammates respect him. They love him. Like, I think this is going to be a really interesting situation because we've talked about all these quarterback deals in the transfer portal and everything. You know, the Georgia job was going to be open in the spring because Carson Beck was going to lead them through the playoffs. What if Gunnar Stockton balls out and they wind up in the final or they wind up winning the national title? Like
Gunnar Stockton,
he's QB1. It's done.
Queued a ton of stats in high school. Like, it's not like he's some sort of limited athlete that can't figure it out in 3 weeks. They've had a lot of time to prepare. So, like, you do have Georgia finding its future quarterback while kicking Notre Dame's ass on national television is on the table. So, we'll see what it turns out on. I think that, like, this is a revelatory game. You don't really have a lot of matchups in the playoffs where it's like, well, we're going to find out like what a team really is, because Notre Dame's schedule, though I think challenging to get through all together, didn't have a major test on it. So we're going to find out big time. And I love that we're on different sides of this thing. I cannot wait for the game.
And let me throw something else out there, because we've not really talked about the reasons why Georgia can win this game. One, watch what they do to teams when their defense is playing really well. It's not what it was in 2021 where you just couldn't run on them. They were too big up front, too fast up front. When they're doing really well now, because they don't have first rounders across the board on their defensive front, but they have a few really good players like Michael Williams. Like, they can get after your quarterback. Like, if they can make Riley Leonard uncomfortable, and remember, Riley Leonard is such a good athlete that in a lot of cases against the teams they've played, if he gets rushed, if somebody beats their man, Riley Leonard can just move around, keep the play alive, and it's no problem. It will be a problem at times because there will be giant humans who run as fast as Riley Leonard coming after him, and he doesn't see that all that often. The other thing that I think is interesting, have we seen a healthy Trevor Etienne since the beginning of the season? Because this guy's a home run threat. And I don't know that we've seen a healthy version of him against Georgia's best opponents. He's had 3 weeks to get healthy. That could be very, very interesting. So
yep,
I'm going to throw those out there as potential reasons for Georgia to win this game. I think all of your points about Notre Dame are right. I think Notre Dame is very good. This is as deep as a Notre Dame team as we've seen. But I still think Georgia's as deeper. And we'll see about the quarterback situation. We'll see about Gunnar Stockton. But I think he's going to be fine. Because, again, against Texas, with a very limited menu where he had not been playing with the ones at practice, he was fine. Now he's going to have a chance to have played with the ones for 3 weeks at practice. So I will take Georgia to win this game. And like you said earlier, I am watching the sharp money on this one because I may be taking the underdog by the time the game actually kicks off.
Yep. We'll see how it goes. I'm on Notre Dame. Let's play.
And producer River wants me to know if I want the money line or the points. I'll take the points. If you're going to give me points with Georgia. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
They're lying,
what am I thinking?
But yeah,
I know. I'm already in the mode that this is going to flip back and think I'm going to get some points. So no, I will take Georgia to cover. I'll take Georgia to cover because it's a 1.5. I mean, come on. So yeah, I will take Georgia. Ari, who you got again?
Notre Dame.
All right, it's on. We're on opposite sides. Oh boy. All right. Off to Pasadena, the game you will be covering in person. I'm so jealous. Ohio State and Oregon. They've played once in Eugene. Oregon won by 1 point. As you would expect for teams that played a 1-point game in one of their on-campus stadiums, you move it to a neutral site. The home team advantage gets pulled away. Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite. That's kind of how the math would work out on that. How much do we take from the first game, Ari?
A lot, I think. I I think that Oregon proved that they are able to compete with and are equipped from an athletic standpoint from top to bottom to exist in a blow for blow game with a team like Ohio State, who I think played their second best game of the year that day. Like Ohio State during the last 10 years, when they lose, a lot of times when they lose, they didn't play well. And only a few times have they played great and lost. And I think that was one of them. Like, I thought they played well, right?
Yes, and
so
that's my thing about this game is when I was watching the Tennessee game with you when we were up in Columbus last weekend, I was thinking, oh, when's the last time they played like this? Well, it was the Oregon game. Like they played like that against Oregon, yet they still lost.
Right. So from when you say, do you take, like, I don't know that I take the result, like who won, who won the game. If you go look at the box score, it was an identical game. Both teams put up all the same yards, time of possession, first downs, points, even like it was all similar.
And it ended with a penalty call that usually, like the offensive pass interference call on Jeremiah Smith was correct. It's just not one they normally will make. Like,
yeah.
And half the time they just let that lie. The other thing is you had the clock situation where Dan Lanning, now they've adjusted this rule, so he can't bend space and time again. But Dan Lanning stole seconds off the clock with that 12-man thing, which was brilliant. And then you also had Will Howard not manage the clock properly at the end of the game. So that's the difference. Like, otherwise, Ohio State's kicking a field goal to win. And that's not a big difference. These teams are very even.
They played an identical game, and who won and lost is important for like resume and stuff. But like as it pertains to analyzing this game, I think it's irrelevant because it was so similar. Now, I don't know how much you think Oregon's home field advantage helped, or the fact that Ohio State had to fly across the country, all that stuff, whatever. Again, irrelevant. The question here is the Ohio State team that showed up against Tennessee who they are for the rest of the playoffs? And if it is, can Oregon beat them twice? Like that to me is like where I'm at. So, in my preseason bracket, I had Oregon winning this game. And then we went to Columbus and saw what Ohio State did to Tennessee. And I thought that was a really dangerous scenario. And I think that the illustration of your column that you wrote, which was the number one seed can't get screwed, is like in the point spread here. Like they have the toughest second round matchup of anybody, and they're the one seed.
They're the underdog as the one seed.
And like we said it all year, like the Big Ten championship game, you should be incentivized to lose. And like, look at that. Look at the difference between them and Penn State. So, I feel for Oregon in that sense, but like, I don't know what it is about Michigan, but Ohio State has a problem with them. Ohio State against everybody else is really, really good. And they were really, really good against Oregon. I just have a hard time seeing Oregon doing it again. So I'm going to switch
I don't see any mental blocks here.
No, if they revert back to what they were, like Ohio State has, if you went down the list, they have more good players and they're playing well. So I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think Ohio State's going to win, but I don't know.
Is that okay? But that's what we want. Okay, this is what we want in this round of the playoff, and the next ones, by the way. Like, that's what we're hoping for. Like, we want, I don't know, because they're both really good. This is what we're hoping for, and this is what we hope all of the games in the next round will be. The two semifinals and the final will be like this.
Like Ducks forever is like they have more good players. Great analysis. Well, what else analysis? Like, why is that bad analysis?
Well, I don't know that they do. That's the other thing.
That's the question. But like,
I'm not sure they do have more good players than Oregon. I think this is pretty close from a talent standpoint.
Well, the fact that it's close is the illustration of why Dan Lanning is the best young coach in the entire sport.
Yeah.
Like when you think about the amount of investment that Ohio State has had in assembling their roster this year and putting together what they have out on the field there, and then you have a team where you're pushing back on the notion that Ohio State has more good players. That is MasterClass, to borrow our sponsor, in building a roster.
Can we go? Let's go group by group. So receivers, I think we're going to take Ohio State's, even though Oregon's are very good. but I'm going to take Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka over anybody. Quarterback, I'm taking Dylan Gabriel.
Yep.
So that's Oregon.
Offensive line,
line I'm taking Oregon. Running backs, I'm taking Ohio State.
Yep. So it's 2-2.
Defensive line, now at the beginning of the year, I would have said Ohio State, but I think I'd take Oregon right now.
Ohio State had their best defensive line performance in like the last 4 years against Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have all 5 players they rotate in there are going to be playing in the NFL for a long time. I don't know.
But Oregon's are all pros too.
Yeah.
Secondary, I'm taking Ohio State.
Yeah.
Linebackers is all kind of a wash. Like, this is going to be an incredible game.
And also, too, Ohio State's receiver advantage is like absolutely unbelievably like stark against everyone else. Like Oregon's the only team where it's like, okay, you could take Ohio State's receivers.
Yeah, I'll take Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson against almost everybody else too.
Like,
exactly.
They've got great receivers too. So I don't know. I don't know, man. It's going to be I think this is going to be the game. Like, I think there's some people who will say, and Ralph Russo even said this, I'm going to put him on blast, that this is the de facto national title game. I don't know if I'm there yet because there's so many big time teams still left. That is, this is what the sport's about, and I can't wait to go.
Okay. This is not the de facto national title game. One of the winning team may win the national title, but not because they won this game. Like, they're not going to blow through, because remember, the team that wins this is probably going to have to play Texas next. And then you're going to have to play Georgia, Notre Dame, Penn State, somebody like that in the final. Like, you're not blowing through those two teams. Or Boise. Yeah, exactly. So you're not blowing through that.
Yeah.
But the national champion may come out of this game for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, do you have a pick here? Like, mine is Ohio State, but I am
picking the Ducks. I think we watched Dan Lanning ascend here. And the first big win for him, because remember, he had those 3 Washington games, one in 2022 and 2 of them in 2023, where he couldn't get over the hump. And they were right there for a couple of them. The Pac-12 championship game, I think Washington sort of enforced this will at the end. But we're like, okay, when's Dan Lanning going to win one of these? The one against Ohio State was the one of those. And then we thought they were going to win the Big Ten championship game. The Penn State team that showed up in the Big Ten championship game was awesome. And they still won. And they still, like, it wasn't a case of they were in danger of losing. Like, Penn State kept getting it to 8, and then Oregon kept extending the lead. So I think Dan Lanning is the next Kirby Smart or Nick Saban or whoever, or Dabo. Like, who's the next one of those? Dan Lanning's the next one. I think we watch him ascend here.
Yeah. And also, I think he's already ascended. They could lose this game, and I would be more than happy saying that he's the number 1 coach outside of Kirby Smart in the entire country. Like, I don't know that this is going to change my mind on him, and what he's done from a talent accumulation standpoint is going to have Oregon in this position over and over and over again. And that's all that you really want. Now, you want him to win, obviously, but your coach has that team in a very good position, and them beating Ohio State would be the least surprising thing on the face of the earth. So, I'm excited. Andy, you were a little bit worried coming into the show that we weren't going to be able to make
River
it
wants
to
to
an
know
hour,
if I want the money line or the 2.5. Give me the money line.
Andy's feeling froggy today. So, what did you think he was going to pick? But we made it to the end here, an hour, because JD's going on, right? Like you were afraid that we didn't have enough to talk about. And pretty soon you're going to find out that should never be a fear of yours ever again. Okay.
Okay. So you're taking the Buckeyes. Ryan Day returns the conquering hero, and then he's going to go to another bowl game and do it all over again. Love it.
They're just playing too well right now to pick against them, in my opinion. That was too impressive.
I cannot wait.
Unless you want to get into a 20-minute discussion about whether Tennessee should have been in the playoff at all. We could talk about that if you want.
We'll say that for the offseason.
I'm kidding.
Guys, 3 bowl games today. Full slate of bowl games tomorrow. Full slate of bowl games on Saturday. We got shows Monday. Tuesday, the thing's back on. Like, the Penn State Boise State game is Tuesday night. It is truly the most wonderful time of the year. You got JD Piquel in the hard count coming up in 3 minutes here on the On3 Sports YouTube channel. We will talk to you on Monday.